Well, the patch notes are out, so no need to keep on guessing what they're gonna be. So in this video we're gonna go over all of the changes, the 14 buffs, the 14 nerfs, and what this might mean for the meta. So if you guys are serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can have some Hearthstone coaching. Now, let's check out the patch.
You are not prepared!
Okay, so here we are, patch 31.0.3. The patch is rolling out today, which should be in about 45 minutes after this video launches, and I will also be streaming live on Twitch, trying to figure out what the new best meta decks are gonna be after the patch, so definitely drop by and check it out. Let's start off with the dev comment. The goal of this patch is to focus on the Great Dark Beyond. The power level of new decks and archetypes is lower than we intended it to be, and older archetypes are more dominant than we'd like. To make new decks and cards stand out more, we're weakening a number of cards, mostly from older sets, and strengthening others, all from the Great Dark Beyond. Our long-term ambition is for the overall power level of the game to be closer to the Great Dark Beyond than the power level of the sets before it. But we think some buffs are warranted and needed to hit our immediate goal, encouraging exploration in the Great Dark Beyond. Between balancing our immediate and long-term goals, plus the sheer number of changes in this patch, we expect there will be some level of follow-up adjustments that we plan to work on in the next balanced patch window after we see how these changes affect the meta, coming before winter break. In deciding which cards to bring down in power, we looked at 3 major categories: 1 overly powerful card archetypes from other expansions, 2 cards that led to frustrating experiences even if not overly powerful, and 3 cards that were overly hostile to new expansion cards and mechanics like Starships. And now let's check out what those cards are. So yeah, from this message we can clearly see that we are going to be expecting another batch of nerfs following up these changes, because some of these buffs might actually end up making some of the new decks actually a bit too dominant, so they will be on top of things. I would be expecting another wave of nerfs in the next 2-3 weeks, so honestly nowadays it's never a safe time to be crafting too much, so yeah. Sucks to be low on dust, I guess. The following cards are being adjusted to be weaker, and we're starting off with a big one. Reno Lone Ranger is no longer going to be limiting to 1 space for a turn, and it's no longer actually going to be removing dormant minions and locations alike. The new battle cry is, if your deck started with no duplicates, remove all enemy minions from the game. The dev comment here is, Reno has been a polarizing card since its release. He's a necessarily strong payoff to singleton decks, which many players really enjoy, but playing against him can be really frustrating, especially his next turn board limitation. It's been difficult to balance these competing player interests, and we don't make this change lightly, but we felt Reno was due for an update to no longer hit non-minions, dormant minions, etc., so we can give Starships a better chance to fly. So yeah, this definitely should help out the Starship archetypes. It's also gonna be a lot easier to actually recover from arena board wipe, because limiting yourself to just 1 minion on the board is actually super massive. Like, it really denies you tons of different things. Like, you don't need me to tell you that, but yeah, I do believe this is a healthy change to the game. Reno definitely is a 2 big high payoff cards, and we've even seen classes like Death Knight run Reno go Highlander just for the Reno alone, despite them not actually having a Reno card themselves. Definitely a warranted nerf over there. Second up is another heavy hitter. It is the Lamplighter, and this is no longer going to have tons of damage. It's only going to be limited to deal 4 damage, as long as you played an elemental last turn, like your Shell Spider and things like that. And yeah, I do believe that Elemental Mage definitely overstayed its welcome. I'm kind of sad that they nerf it this way. Then again, I guess I can't blame him much. Like, I guess Elemental Mage is really gonna have to lean forward even harder on the Saroon gameplay, because some decks were actually using the old Elemental Mages, just running the new free one that draws them a bunch, without even abusing Saroon and stuff like that. So with this change, I don't think that's gonna be as good of a deck anymore. And yeah, the dev comment here is, elemental decks are designed to be tempo decks that can play for board and be aggressive. We want them to have some finishing power, but Lamplighter gave the deck more direct damage than we'd like. We think this change, instead of just making it cost more or only hit minions, better aligns with the goals for this archetype. And yeah, definitely would have killed the card if they made it go for minions only. I think it would have been still pretty busted at 5 mana as well. At 4 mana deal 4, it's kinda okay, and you're not gonna be as punished not being able to actually curve out elementals aside from the Surger limitation, but that's still not gonna be that big a deal. So I do believe Saroon Mage is still gonna be pretty strong, but the just straight up Elemental Mage is gonna be dead in the water kind of deal. Next up we have Seabreeze Chalice, and I actually got surprised by this one. This is no longer gonna be going phase, guys. This literally kills Dollhouse Druid completely. Seabreeze Chalice was a little bit too important for the archetype. Don't get me wrong, you can still pull off lethals with Dollhouse Druid like that, but not having Seabreeze Chalice in the mix, that's just way too big. Not blaming them. Dollhouse definitely felt a little bit on the toxic side. I did enjoy the deck myself, but I am definitely not against it getting slapped like this, and yeah, I don't believe we're gonna be seeing much of Dollhouse Druid anymore because of this. We also have Convincing Conman as well as Seashill, and both of them are no longer gonna be replaying shit for mages, for pallies, that kind of deal. They're gonna be replaying the last card you've played from another class. AKA, if you're a mage, it's not going to repeat mage cards. If you're a paladin, it's not going to repeat paladin cards. This is mainly going to be if you're a rogue, it's going to repeat the burgle cards you've discovered from other classes. And yeah, definitely another very, very worth change here. Big Spell Mage, totally shot on. Taurus Pally, totally shot on. And I, for one, am okay with both of those getting slapped. They kind of have overstayed their welcome. Not amazing that a lot of people are still enjoying these classes. I'm not happy for those people not getting to enjoy those old archetypes anymore, but honestly the decks were just a little bit too broken, especially because of this thing. And honestly the Seashell also enabled some absolutely broken stuff like turn 4 tsunamis. That is not supposed to be happening in standard much. I do believe this is healthy for the game, but it kind of sucks that all of these changes are basically making budget players that crafted a very good meta deck an expansion or two ago, and now they're completely dead in the water like that, like a couple of rare and common cards getting slapped like this. Yeah, enjoy getting that speck of dust, given you had to spend 1600 a pop on your legendaries for those decks. So kind of shitty, but it's definitely a healthy step for the game in general. We also have Sleep Under the Stars, which I was actually not expecting to see on the teaser image, but this thing is going up to 8 mana, and everything else is remaining the same for it. Kind of weird, but things like Dungar Druid were definitely pretty broken with it. And it was also pretty broken in Dollhouse Druid, like you were able to actually get tons of extra mana back with the help of things like File, like getting yourself 2 mana, 0 mana Sleep Under the Stars. That way you basically get to have 9 mana back. I'm not saying you still couldn't do that, like Dollhouse Druid can still basically discount it down to 0 if they really wanted to, but it's gonna be a little bit harder, I guess. So yeah, another big hit, the Druid, and I guess Ramp Druids are not gonna be super happy about that. Quasar Rogue, obviously it was gonna be in for a nerf. That was obvious as day. On day one, less than 24 hours into the expansion, everybody and their grandmother should have known Quasar Rogue is getting clapped. Some people refused to believe that, some people were extremely toxic in my comments, but honestly, shit like that doesn't faze me anymore. When I see people like that, I just know that the YouTube algorithm is just working for me and it's showing my videos to a lot broader audience, and yeah, cockroaches do start to crawl when situations like that emerge. So like I said, it was very, very obvious that a card like this was way too toxic to be in standard. Like, yeah, it was obvious. It's not the highest of win rate decks, but once it pops off, the other person just has the worst game of their lives. So this should be surprising absolutely nobody. It's going up to 8 mana. You're still going to be able to do this as soon as turn 5. It can still be absolutely broken, but odds of this happening way too soon will be like 1 every 20 games, I'd say, so there's that. The dev comment here is, yeah, our bad. Every expansion, we like to make a few dreamy cards that get players thinking about how far they can push the game. These cards aren't supposed to be the most competitively viable. The fun of them is wondering what if. Quasar mostly fell into that category. It certainly got the dreamers cooking, and it hasn't turned out to be a competitive power outlier, but the experiences when this card does work are too sharp and end games too early, turning the dream into a nightmare to play against. So definitely happy that this thing is happening, and I'd say good riddance. Another thing that's changing for Rogue is everything must go, and this does indeed hit the most viable archetype for Rogues right now. Like, you're not seeing playing rogues in lower ranks much, but in top legends, Cyclo Rogue was an absolute menace, mainly because this card used to cost 8, and that way with the Robo-Color, Shadow Stepping a Robo-Color always draws you free 8 drops, 2 of these, and 8 mana tradable Drake, and this way you were literally able to do a turn-free everything must go, which was absolutely bonkers. With this out of the way, Sonya is still gonna be a problematic card, I'd say, but at least you're not gonna have to worry about a turn-free 5 minions on the board, 4 of which are random 4 drops, and sometimes that even gave him a freaking Sonya to Shadow Step, and that was just brutal. I am surprised that Sonya did not get clapped here. I am definitely expecting her to be on the next batch of nerfs if she is still a part of the super high skill cap broken rogue decks. But until then, we're gonna have to wait and see. Malted Magma is another card I was not expecting to see on this list, and it is getting the Chalice treatment. It's no longer gonna be going face, and that's kind of a minor change to be honest, but then again, given a lot of people started running this with Ethereal, that was definitely a lot of extra damage. In the end of the day, like it was above 10 damage if you combine it with a little bit of spell damage here and there. It's still gonna be a good clear tool, but it's just not gonna be going face, so things like Corpsicle spell damage, Death Knight, and spell damage Burn Shamans are not gonna have as much reach now. Speaking of Shamans, Wave of Nostalgia is also going up to 6 as expected. The deck was a little bit too strong for a little bit too long, and yeah, it definitely does not allow Starships to really feel good against them, because you're not only facing some absolute bonkers boards as soon as turn 3 or 4, but this also evolves your Starship pieces into some random BS, and that was definitely not fun for the archetype. This should definitely be toning down Shamans quite a bit, but we will see how much. I do believe Nostalgia Shamans should still be viable, but not as much. Threads of Despair is another pretty broken card that has been in the game for quite a while. This thing used to cost 1 mana, and now it's costing 3, and honestly I do believe it could even cost 4 or 5, because it's just that good. It's just going up to 3 mana here. It's still basically a turn 5 super reliable board clear for the Death Knight class with the help of their hero power, but I guess at least they're not going to be able to do that much more in that turn, so that's something. Reska's also getting clapped here, just a little bit in my opinion, going from 20 to 25, like what's that gonna do? 1 turn later, you're gonna be able to slap this. Like, it's still gonna be able to steal Starships quite easily, because you're probably gonna have this 0 a couple of turns before the opponent actually blasts their Starship, so I don't know, it's kind of a weird little change, but it's not the only change in the patch, so I guess it's an okay thing. Funnel Cake was also an interesting card to see on the list. This is gonna be another nail in the coffin, like this is 2 extra nails from the final nail in the coffin for Dollhouse Druids, and it's definitely a big hit at aggro priests like Zarimi and Cole's Priest. Bumping this up to 2 mana is basically just Innervate with a lot of extra steps, like you're actually gonna have to play Innervate with a condition now. For Druids, yeah, they can discount this, for Priests not so much however, so only gaining 1 mana with a condition here kinda is gonna be weird for both the classes, but then again, the Priests are abusing this for the overheal mechanic as well, not only because they're gaining mana, but they also have plenty of extra effects like damage, like extra health, like extra card draw, that kind of deal, so I guess we're still gonna be seeing this in Cole's Priest, but maybe not so much in Zarimi, who knows. We're still probably gonna see it in Zarimi, I mean, it draws him a bunch of cards, so it's still good enough. Next up, we have the Mystery Egg, and this I did not expect, honestly, but to be fair, with all of the other nerfs happening, Egg Hunter definitely seemed like a super strong deck, and honestly, I was climbing quite nicely with it while the other broken things were there, so I can see this. And the change here is the beast you get is gonna be only 3 less, not 4, so you're gonna be getting 3 mana Mookless, 3 mana Hounds, 6 mana King Plushes, 4 mana Sasquatch, that kind of deal. The other big change here is mostly to Wild, because this thing also hurts the Death Rattle Hunter there with the Savannah, or whatever the fuck that wolf was. Or whatever the hell that lion was called, so I guess that makes Wild a little bit healthier. And lastly, we have Order in the Court, and this definitely does look like a buff, but in reality it's not, because with this thing, it's reordering your deck from highest to lowest, and it also draws a card, which I think that's how the card used to work, but they nerfed it because Valleys were a little bit too strong back in the day with it. But now what this does is it basically draws you your highest cost card, which is the 100 Ceaseless, and this way you're not gonna be able to actually blast 100 damage on turn 5, which was definitely too broken. Def comment, on its face this looks like a buff, but the intent of this change is to pull back on play patterns that is warping the wild metagame. With the introduction of the Ceaseless Expanse, the deck got a payoff worth going all in on, in a way that made the deck faster and more consistent than ever before. This change will still allow for big plays while skipping over the turn 5 100 Holy Raft target. With this change, the Ceaseless Expanse is no longer banned in Wild. And yeah, definitely a healthy change for Wild. And it's kinda nice that they're still trying to make Wild somewhat balanced. Honestly, not trying too hard, but at least the absolute broken shit gets addressed. So yeah, all of the above cards will be getting a full dust refund for the next couple of weeks. And we can also see disenchantable copies of Master Call. More on that in the bug fixes and game improvements. Well, I guess I'm gonna drag that. See what that actually is about. Bug fixes. Various Discover cards, Master's Call, Font of Power, whatever, have been adjusted to more clearly and accurately account for cards gained through Discover versus alternative effects. We don't normally give refunds for these type of bug fixes, general rules, updates, and these changes won't have any gameplay impact in most games, but we've decided to include Master's Call in the patch refund period due to its specific change interaction with alien encounters. Honestly, I'm too dumb to understand what this means. What was alien encounters anyway? Okay, so alien encounters, they get discounted by Discover. So this thing does not give the discount or what? Yeah, I kind of don't get why this is in the refund window, but hey, extra dust. Not gonna question it too much. So yeah, I always remind you guys, if you're not using these cards literally right now in your decks, it's always a good idea to disenchant them in these 2 weeks. And if you later decide you still want to be playing with these cards, if it turns out that these decks are still actually viable, you still want to be playing them, you can still craft them for the exact same price you got disenchant dust for. But if you decide you don't want to be using these cards after those 2 weeks, you're only going to be getting the 1/4 or 1/5 of the dust value, so always worth disenchanting the nerfed cards, guys. And that's why I never actually press the mass disenchant button, so I can actually decide what cards I want to be disenchanting. And when I see cards with high nerf potential, aka Quasar, I leave all copies of those and disenchant the trash I know it was just a filler card to begin with. Those still have a chance to get nerfed, because as we saw, things like Razzler got buffed, and then they got nerfed as well. So nothing is really safe from nerfs, but some cards are definitely obvious nerf contenders, and you don't want to be disenchanting most of those. Anyway, enough about that. Now let's look at the buffs, and the following cards are being adjusted to be stronger. Def comment, when we looked at the Great Dark Beyond data, we found some cards with room for buffs, so we've made adjustments across a wide range of new cards with an emphasis on promoting the expansion's marquee archetypes. Starting off with Ascara, she used to be a 5-mana 4/5, now she's a 4-mana 4/4, and I don't believe this change is gonna do all that much for the Draenei Dreams. Maybe some Control Priest might emerge, feel good about it, but I wouldn't hold my breath too much. Not sure this change is gonna be doing all that much. The decks that use this card currently are about 40% win rate, barely. With all the other nerfs happening, maybe it's gonna become a 50, but not much else, and probably not thanks to this. We also have Didra, Rebel Captain. She is gonna be shuffling still 8, but she's gonna be drawing 2 crewmates. Everything else is the same for her. And I'm not sure this is enough to really make the crewmates feel that amazing, but then again, we do have another change, which is the Varonei Recruiter is gonna get 1 extra attack, and honestly, who the fuck asked for that? Like, you want this thing to be sticking longer on the board, so either make it a 1-drop or a 1/4, like, what's the point of it having more attack? It's really a minor change. Obviously, you're gonna get a little bit better trades on the board, but not much else, and I don't think these 2 changes are doing much for the crewmate archetype, but I guess we'll wait and see how that one pans out. I would not be expecting much to change there. Interstellar Star Slicer is indeed going to be a 3-mana 3/2 instead of a 3-mana 2/3, and that is a huge change for the Librams, because this way you're not gonna have to be wasting 3 turns blasting away with the weapon. You can only crack it in a couple of turns, and it's actually gonna have a meaningful attack to it, so you can actually make some good value trades or truncate the opponent's face. So that's kind of cool, but this alone is not going to change much. We also have a rel for the Librams, so those are 2 buffs to the Libram package, and she is also going to become a 4-mana free instead of a 5-mana 4-free. And this way you're going to be able to get the Librams a turn early, and you're also probably going to be having them discounted a little bit, so that kind of is cool. I'm not sure these 2 changes are enough to make Librams that much more viable, but I would not be surprised with all of these changes if Libram becomes a tier 2 or maybe top tier 2 deck, honestly, because it really needs just a little bit for it to feel real nice. And maybe people just haven't tinkered enough with it. I've heard some people talk about making the deck a lot more combo aggressive heavy. Maybe some deck hands in there so you can charge with all of those 0-mana buffs, but we will see how that pans out. Now we get to see some Starship action going, and we have the Fellfire Thrusters. This used to be a 3-mana 2-3, now it's gonna be a 3-mana 2-4. A very minor change, but it is gonna help you maybe stick this so you can actually spell burst the turn after. So that is something, but honestly I don't believe this change is gonna make all that much of a difference for Warlock Starship action. Still probably is gonna be a wee bit on the slow side. We also have the Shatari Cloak Field for the Druids, and this is the change I was expecting to the Star Crew Demon Hunter cards. Here we are indeed getting this up to a 1-4, and that is indeed gonna help you actually stick this for an extra turn perhaps. Good change for Druid Starship action, and we do have plenty of other Starship pieces buffed, so combined might actually be worth investing in. We also have the Gravitational Displacer. It's gonna become a 5-mana 5-4 instead of a 5-mana 4-3. Personally, I do believe this is not that amazing. Like, it's basically a 5-mana do nothing. Maybe if it had Rush or something, like, damn, right now it's kinda skip your turn kind of deal. Play a fucking Chillwind Yeti for 5 mana, like, thanks. But to be honest, it was a lot worse before, so there's that. We also have another change for rogues, and the discover a random starship piece from another class is going to be costing 1 less, so this definitely does help for starships to feel a little bit less clunky, because like I said in the teaser video, the starship stuff all feels a little bit on the mediocre side, but the payoff is definitely going to be quite huge, and with discounts like these, it's going to be a lot easier to actually drop those not so amazing pieces to begin with. We also have a third change for rogues, and the Scrounging Shipwright used to be a Death Rattle, get a random starship piece, and now it's going to be a Battle Cry instead, so this is going to help you do things a little bit more quickly, a little bit more consistent, and you're not going to be afraid of silences, if you ever were. Like, what is this silence in standard right now? But yeah, this is an okay change for the Starship action. We might actually see some around 55% win rate Starship Rogues instead of the pitiful 40-45 right now. And we also have Exodar being a super payoff card for the Starship action. I did not expect to be seeing this on the list, but it is actually moving down to a 7-mana 6/8 instead of an 8-mana 8/10. And this is kind of huge. Like, I feel like this card is a little bit gonna be too strong. Like, right now it is a strong card. Buffing an already good card, like, we already saw how that goes. Razdor got buffed, then it got reverted, and I think this also is gonna get reverted at some point, probably next expansion, when they decide the new expansion is overshadowed by Exodar crap. But yeah, let's see how that one pans out. Dev comment here is this last change is particularly spicy. We wanted to make sure that Starship's got a chance to shine, but we'll keep an eye on this one. After all, the changes go live to make sure we didn't push too far. And I do believe this one is a little bit a step too far. We might even get a revert on this, even in the next balance patch in 2-3 weeks from now. So definitely good idea to keep an eye for this one. We also have Ace Wayfinder. It's gonna be from a 5-mana 5/5. Now it's gonna be a 4-mana 4/4. Still feels a little bit on the wonky side. It's still gonna be random bonus effects, so you're not gonna be discovering those, but I don't know. Don't feel like the Draenei action is looking particularly too amazing so far. Another Starship piece from the neutral stuff is Dimensional Core is now going to be a 2-mana 2/2 with Divine Shield, which is definitely feeling a lot better than a 3-mana 3/2 Divine Shield. Like, that felt borderline classic to me. And this is definitely a good change for the Starship action. And lastly, we have Astral Vigilant. It used to be a 1-mana 1/1, now it's gonna be a 1-mana 1/2, and honestly, this feels a little bit on the whatever side. Like, why even bother include this? What does that achieve? It's still not an actual one-drop for you, so I'm really not sure why they're trying to make a change to this card this way. It feels really not impactful to me, but I don't know, you guys tell me what you think about all of these changes. As for the meta, the nerfs are definitely hard enough for the old top meta decks to get slapped really hard, and I'm expecting most of them to actually be fading in power quite nicely. As for the starships, definitely expecting things like Hunter Starship to be shining really hard. Starship Death Knight was showing promise. Heck, even Starship Warriors that actually don't have Starship action in them generally have been having good win rate, so things like that are definitely going to be shining. Warlock didn't feel too amazing in particular, and neither did the Death Knight buffs, but we will have to wait and see how it pans out, I guess. Anyway, that's going to be for this video, quite the long one, and I hope it helps you figure out what you want to be trying in the first few hours after the expansion launches today. Like I said, I am going live right now after the expansion goes live, 45 minutes after this video, so I hope to see you on the Twitch stream as well. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.